What's up, YouTube? James Biggie here, and today I have a special guest. This is Alyson. She's my girlfriend, and we do stuff together, and it's the first time I was lucky enough to talk her into getting on camera and talking to me on my YouTube channel. The occasion is we went and saw a movie together, and we're going to do a little bit of a podcast movie review sort of thing now. For those who don't know, the movie we went and saw is War for the Planet of the Apes, and it is the third installment in the current, remake, prequel trilogy of the Planet of the Apes. There was Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think those in that order, and now War for the Planet of the Apes. So before we get started, there's going to be all the spoilers, hella spoilers in this video, so don't watch it if you haven't seen the movie, unless you don't care.
But even then, you should still watch the movie before you watch this, so that you can formulate your own opinions before listening to other people talk about theirs.
Yes, it's a good point. It's a very good point. But yeah, go see the movie, or pick it up, or stream it, or watch it online when it comes out. It's totally worth seeing, despite the opinions that we both have about it. It was a good movie, but before we get to that, spoilers, stop here. Okay, what did you think of the movie, Alyson? Go.
It was not my fave. I know that you liked it a lot, but it didn't get there for me.
I enjoyed it quite a bit. I agree with the points that you've made in the car ride home from the theater.
It was a heated debate.
Not a debate so much as a discussion, as we generally do have. And we both agreed on certain points, but the points that were a deal breaker for her were not as much of a deal breaker for me. Specifically, what was it that was troubling for you?
I feel like they took it to kind of a corny place, and I wasn't expecting there to be corn in the mix.
There were some cheesy parts. I agree.
It was super cheesy.
Not the whole movie. Again,
not the whole movie, but enough for it to be a problem for me.
Yeah, if you saw the first two movies, the tone was pretty dark and pretty serious throughout. There wasn't a ton of humor or jokes or anything like that. There's a very, very minor amount, but not nearly as much as they put into this movie.
I thought it was, in the first two movies, the relief that they had from the serious parts would be, Caesar's heart-to-heart moments with the humans and realizing his own humanity, and I thought that was enough to break it up. However, in this installment, they've inserted a character named Bad Ape. I'm assuming that's his name. That's what he introduces himself as.
Unconfirmed about the name. Anyway.
Unofficially Bad Ape.
Okay.
That's what we'll call him.
We'll call him Bad Ape. If you haven't seen the movie yet.
The Planet of the Apes equivalent to Jar Jar. And it was...
There was a silly character who was, very humorous, very funny, and at first, when he enters the movie or whatever and is stumbled upon, it's funny, and it's actually kind of really neat. It's one of those sort of this is cool sort of moments, and then throughout the rest of the movie, they kind of pushed it too far, and it got a little touch cheesy.
I will say, though, that he is the cutest ape character that I've met so far.
He was adorable.
He wore a plush vest.
So maybe more so, less Jar Jar, more Ewoks, if we're using this Star Wars analogy.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
I don't think he was I don't think it was a breaking point for a movie, or it totally took you out of the movie, but it did change the tone very much so.
It didn't break it for me.
I get it.
Overall, the whole thing that disappointed me with the movie was the tone. And that's the only thing that I could say was the most major letdown.
Yeah.
But he was just, he added to it. He added to that tone. That light, fluffy, like...
And don't get me wrong, there's explosions, there's apes dying, there's humans dying, there is borderline torture and slavery happening, and a lot of dark themes, and I think maybe they tried a little too hard to balance it with some sort of comedy or some sort of lighthearted tone in between, and it just felt like, just dial it back a little bit. That's where I stand on it. Like, if they dialed it back a touch, they could lean into it a little bit with jokes, and I think the reason they did is because these movies serve as a prequel to what I think will eventually be the remake of the original Planet of the Apes, which I haven't seen in many, many years, and Alyson has seen never. She's never seen it. So I could see where they're coming from. For somebody that jumped into this franchise as a brand new thing, I can see where you're coming from with the fact that it doesn't match up completely with the first two movies.
But they've started this thing. They've created their own universe, and I feel like they would have benefited from sticking true to what they were building instead of veering off. And while there were dark themes in the movie, I'm not going to discredit that. I think that it was a little bit too airy. Most parts. I didn't feel connected to a couple of the characters, like the little girl, Nova, or, you know, that ape.
I enjoyed Nova quite a bit.
I didn't feel her. I wasn't feeling her.
To spoil things a little further, a big part of this movie, what they do is they also explain it with a lot of exposition that the virus that originally made the apes smart and killed off most of the humans on planet Earth kind of changed and mutated and is now making humans that have survived through it regress and become unable to speak or to fully function and think, and become a little more primitive and, for lack of better words, dumber. The apes, the core group of apes, the whole premise from the beginning is there is a war going on between this militant faction of humans and the apes, and they are looking for Caesar and his group to try to take out Caesar, the leader, obviously. And in that conflict, you open the movie, there's sort of a battle, and the resolve of the battle is Caesar's wife and first son, Bright Eyes, are killed, and so Caesar becomes vengeful. He sends the rest of the group of apes to go find a new home, to leave the woods, and the whole setup is him going on a vengeful path, and he has apes, a group come along with him, kind of to his chagrin. He doesn't want them to come, but they do, and it's Maurice, the big orangutan, and then Rocket, another main character from the last movie, and the third one is a gorilla, a silverback named Luca.
Not Buck.
Not Buck from the second movie. But, so on their way to go try to track down the leader of this faction, played by Woody Harrelson, they stumble upon a young girl, probably about 10 or 11, who has the virus, or the version of the virus, that doesn't allow her to speak. So she can't speak or communicate English, and that's who Alyson just expressed that she didn't really connect with.
I don't know, though, if the virus necessarily makes them dumber. I think it just takes away their ability to speak and articulate.
Yeah,
because Nova picked up on most of the sign language that Maurice was trying to teach her. She learned a little bit of signing, and she was smart enough to figure out that Caesar needed water and food, and how to sneak into the heavily armed and guarded camp.
A little unclear exactly how the virus has morphed outside of the fact that humans can no longer speak if they're affected by it. But yeah, I agree. But while you say you didn't connect with Nova, I kind of did a lot because she gave Maurice such a good plot line and a sort of good through line throughout the entire movie. He speaks for the first real time in any of the movies. He also kind of shows a lot of compassion for this little girl that we've always sort of thought, or always he sort of felt like the voice of reason and the moral barometer for Caesar, kind of kept Caesar in check throughout all three of the movies. So I thought it was a good addition, and it worked out for me.
Sorry, I'm not much of a talker, guys. He wrote me into this.
Yeah, I'm not trying to monopolize all the talking either, but I agree where you say that they leaned a little bit too heavy into the humor a bit. There's a lot of good stuff, though, and some dark stuff. Like, there was basically an Apes concentration camp at this, like, compound that this militant factions held up at that was previously like a FEMA camp sort of thing, and or a weapons storage sort of thing, and became a FEMA camp sort of thing when the virus first happened, and then was taken over and utilized as a compound and a prison for apes. There was, like, between concentration camp and the slavery of apes, they were making them work to build a wall, like Trump style, and Mexico's gonna pay for it. No, or apes are gonna pay for it.
Apes are gonna pay for it.
Yeah, they're gonna build the wall and they're gonna pay for it too. No,
their own blood,
they
sweat, and tears.
imprison the apes and enslave them to build this wall, and we don't know why they're building a wall at first, and then it comes to find out that this faction of militant soldiers, led by Woody Harrelson's character, whose name I don't quite recall.
His name was the Colonel.
Yeah, they just sort of loosely refer to as the Colonel.
A lot of characters in this one didn't have...
It went a little unnamed, although they did name, like, the little girl Nova, and you see why later in the movie. I won't go full spoiler on it, but
I thought that's what we were doing.
I mean, we'll go full spoiler for the plot and stuff, but I don't want to give away every single detail, you know? Just the major ones. I won't give away the minor
just
ones.
Everything you need to know.
If you're watching this, you should know why anyway. But it turns out that Woody Harrelson's character, the Colonel, was sort of the first one to discover that humans with this virus could not speak and were regressing, and he discovered this by discovering his own son was affected with it, and he explains this in a long piece of exposition where he's basically explaining his part of the plot to Caesar, which that's one of the problems I had. We didn't see his character develop. He just told us about it for a long time. But his son was affected by this virus, and he mercilessly kind of he put his own son down. He shot his own son. And he explains this all to Caesar in sort of a kind of a dark, deep moment of this movie, of which there are many. It's not all clown shit and fun. I know. Also, another issue you had was with the score of the movie, correct?
Oh, I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. I don't want to sound like the critical asshole here. I really don't.
I'm usually that guy, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I like when you're the critical asshole.
I'm usually pretty passive about what I watch or whatever, but I had really high hopes for this, and I was kind of...
Yeah, you're really into this series. I really loved it, too. Like, I loved the first two movies a lot. Like, after the first one, I was like, wow, this is... They're doing a good job with a reboot, and that never happens anymore.
However, the score of the movie... totally different from the other two. Again, it was completely different. Like, really weird, like, 80s sounding...
There were...
obviously, I don't know how to explain it. It was just really weird and corny.
I don't know who actually scored this film. There are sections of it where it sounds a little Danny Elfman.
There's sections of it where it
for my
sounds
taste.
like like Home Alone tiptoeing through the kitchen, kind of mischievous, like music while...
These are moments of tiptoeing and mischievous activities, so that...
There were mischievous tiptoeing activities in the other movies, and they had a different score.
Okay.
Different
fair
sound.
Fair enough. So, again, my lovely girlfriend Alyson wants the doom and the gloom and the death and the killing and the murder and the blood and the explosions and none of the fun stuff. Pretty accurate.
No, it's
I
not.
I know.
I'll reiterate again, like I have for the 5th time since we saw this movie. I don't mind that there were funny, lighthearted moments, but I think that they were a lot different from the lighthearted moments in the first 2 movies.
They were, and I agree with that.
And I like the tone of the first 2 movies.
There's a tonal shift for a large portion of this movie. But it also introduces us to Cornelius, Caesar's son, his youngest son, who in this movie is essentially a young child ape, I guess. Toddler. Who I feel is going to carry the franchise of the Apes movies going forward. At least that's what they're setting it up for. I didn't look at any box office numbers on this, so I don't know how well it did. I assume it did fairly well. And upon agreeing to do this podcast and review it here together, I went online and I looked up some reviews, and Alyson was like, that's probably why we haven't heard a lot about it or any good or bad reviews for it, because it was so different tonally. And I was like, well, let me see what everybody's roughly reviewing it at. And it has positive reviews pretty much overall. But
I was wrong again. Surprise, surprise.
I'm not saying you're wrong. No, I agree with you with the issues that you had. They just didn't bother me the same way they bothered you. Outside of that, obviously, if we have to rank the 3 Planets of the Apes movies, where does this sit for you?
Dead last, obviously.
Okay. And the first 2, which did you like the best, and which in the middle?
The first was my favorite.
The first? Okay, so James Franco raising young Caesar.
I will never oppose Woody Harrelson in sunglasses.
Really?
That's like Natural Born Killers.
Okay, yeah, you have this weird fetish about that movie in general and everybody in it. She loves Natural Born Killers. She loves Juliette Lewis. She loves Woody Harrelson with a shaved head.
So good. So good.
In a weird sort of like, not just like, I like that actor, like in a weird sort of like
grungy white trash
that really fires up my engine sort of way.
Yeah.
You can't even deny it. She can't deny it. I thought Woody Harrelson was good in the movie. I think his character was very not underutilized, but there's a lot of exposition. There's a lot of explaining shit verbally instead of showing us shit, and there's a lot of opportunity, I think, missed with that character.
Like what?
I just think, like, they didn't develop him the same way that they developed in the second movie. What was his name? The one human that helped Caesar or whatever, that was trying to fix the dam.
He's the dad guy.
The dad-ass looking dude. Yeah. They developed that character a little bit better. They developed James Franco a little bit better. And the villains in those movies, a little bit better. Koba was a better developed villain.
He was developed over 2 movies.
That's fair. And in the first movie, even still, the whole reason that the virus broke out was because of this, like, finance boss sort of corporate asshole not letting James Franco test properly this drug and then insisting that he test improperly. So that was, I don't know, although that guy wasn't necessarily the villain is, like, society and testing on animals and that whole metaphor. Like, I think those movies developed their villains or their antagonist better than this movie, and the main human characters were developed better in those movies.
Yeah, even the guy, I forget his name, but in this last one, the one who was shooting the crossbow.
Yeah, they tried to give him
and
an arc,
happened.
But
it was so.
He didn't have an arc.
But he was in every single scene, almost.
Not every single, but he was in a lot of scenes, and you thought there was going to be more to do with him, and then there wasn't. They didn't pay it off.
I thought he'd be the one to let them go.
Yeah, they make you think that this dude's going to have a change of heart and realize that, like, the humans are fucking up badly, and that the apes are getting the shit end of the stick, and that he would have felt bad and either helped or stepped down and allowed the apes to do their thing, and he didn't. One interesting plot line too is this movie introduced us to the traitor apes who basically help the humans, work for them as sort of grunt monkeys, for lack of better terms. Funny enough, to me, it kind of made me chuckle. They call them donkeys, which to me is funny because of Donkey Kong, because they're sentient human-like, they're human-like acting apes that are helping and working for these humans and fucking up other apes. And for, like, lack of a better metaphor, it reminded me a lot of, like, Django Unchained, Samuel L. Jackson's character, who hated black people and was a slave himself, but was like a black slaver.
He was a house slave.
But he was like took the side of the white folks instead of the black folks, and instead of the other slaves. That's what it was like. There was.
I think though that you could kind of understand where the traitor ones were coming from, though, because they'd promised them to be safe, and I think they realized that they were going to lose.
Yeah, a lot of it was cowardice, which, again, is a lot like the Samuel L. Jackson and Django Unchained, because, like, there's a lot of metaphor of slavery and stuff like that in these movies, especially this one. This one, they really, 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 really hit it home with the slavery sort of metaphor. And yeah, there were traitor apes, one of which does have that turning point where there's a lot of moments of him like actually like not patrolling but like moving Caesar to and from when he's imprisoned and carrying out orders to whip other apes and stuff. And he has like a turning moment where he redeems himself slightly. And again, we're deep in the spoilers, so I'm not sorry anymore, but
just
dies because of it. Yeah, I'll put definite spoilers in the title. But he dies because of his change of heart or whatever, his redeeming moment.
He would have died anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Most likely.
He knew that he was wrong. That's why he helped.
Yeah, but he had that character moment, and the whole time, again, it's funny. I think that that they did do a little bit too much funny with the movie, but the more you think about it, like, there's slavery, there's whipping of slavery, and like lashings being handed out by apes on apes, like ape on ape crime. There is like the murder of a family. There is talk about, we don't see it, but of a dude killing his own son. There are actually crucifixions of a bunch of the apes. Like, this dude, Woody Harrelson's character, had a bunch of them fucking crucified.
Yeah, but it would have been so much more impactful had they not slipped in all of the bullshit.
Maybe. I don't know. It was fucking dark for a lot of it. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, maybe we needed to laugh at the one ape who could speak and who is funny and who wears a little fucking ski cap and a little fucking puffy vest. Like, maybe we need that dude. Otherwise, this whole thing would have just been the most depressing movie ever made. I don't know.
I guess I'm just too cynical.
Maybe you're too dark inside. She's a very dark person. Her soul is black, like the strongest coffee you've ever had. Anyway,
It's not that bad.
no, she's not. She's wonderful, and we hope that she joins us again to review other stuff. Anyway, overall, I enjoyed the movie quite a bit. Where it ranks for me among them, I think my favorite is the second one, and I want to say that this one and the first one are close. I'm gonna have to reflect on it a little bit longer, maybe watch it again when it comes out on Blu-ray, and kind of see.
I disagree.
That's fair. I think the second one was by far the best movie. And the reason I think that this one may be close to the first one is this one had all of the, like, ape society shit that the second one had, and I really enjoy that stuff. Like, I like seeing them civilized. Another thing we didn't mention, at this point in this movie, Caesar is 99% of the time walking fully upright like a human and speaking clear, like, complete, clear, concise English better than I can. Which is cool. Most of the other apes still communicate through signing and stuff like that. But, like, this really went to show that, like, Caesar is damn near a man himself, and they give him sort of a dark storyline to kind of follow where he struggles with his own need to have revenge, fighting with his own need to remain civilized and not fall into the sort of the darkness that happened with other characters in these movies, Koba, Woody Harrelson's character, like, and that's why Maurice is there along for the journey to be the sort of morality scale or whatever.
Maurice is my favorite.
Maurice is her favorite.
He's so cute.
Which is funny, yeah. See, I wanted this movie to be darker and angrier, but Maurice is adorable, guys.
He is. He's always been the cutest.
He really is. She has a thing for ginger-looking giant apes. Yeah.
I just like Maurice because he's kind of...
He's a big teddy bear.
He is, yeah. And he, you know, I don't feel like... He was a circus act. He was a circus pet thing. Part of the circus.
Yes.
And that, you know, is a very cruel practice. I'm sure he was subject to a lot of human cruelty. And yet he's still super for helping them. And even in the first movie, when he was talking to Caesar, he said he only saw the bad parts of humans and not the good parts.
Yeah, and he's the scale of morality throughout this whole trilogy. And to give away the end, Caesar gets them out. The humans end up kind of destroying themselves on both sides because Woody Harrelson's character and this faction are actually preparing and building a wall because they're being invaded, and they know that they have an oncoming war amongst them and other humans. Their former higher-ups or their former, I guess, allies are now against them because Woody Harrelson's batshit crazy. And they kind of destroy each other, and Caesar leads the apes out to basically the promised land. They have, like, a pilgrimage to what will eventually be their new home, and Caesar doesn't quite make it. He makes it there, and then he has his last breath at the end of the movie and passes away. But Maurice is still alive. Caesar's son is still alive. Cornelius, his youngest son that we're introduced to in this movie. I believe Rocket was still alive too. The new Jar Jar Binks-esque ape who speaks and is kind of hilarious is alive as well. So there's a lot of setup and a lot of potential going forward. But I think the shift in tone from this movie, from the previous ones, is to try to adapt audiences and prepare audiences for what will be the remake of the original Planet of the Apes, which at the end of the day is a bunch of dudes in ape suits. And they're all upright and talking and have a society, and there's doctors and stuff like that, and it's kind of ridiculous. Hopefully they modernize it a little bit and don't go so far to the realm of cheesy and humorous and have some sort of that same element of seriousness that the other two movies had.
Right.
Right. Anything to add? Is there anything else that you can think of that's worth mentioning?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Alright. So that's about it. I thought it was very good. She thought it was less good. Again, I think it's worth seeing. I liked it quite a bit. I don't think there was... if you have invested any amount of thought or effort or time into the first two or into this series at all, it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't hate it. I just wasn't... It threw me a little bit.
Touch of letdown.
Yeah, disappointed.
Okay. That's fair. So that's it. That's all we've got. War for the Planet of the Apes. Definitely check it out. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below down here. I'll also link a couple other videos. And if you guys like seeing this sort of thing, where if we go and see a movie together, you'd like to hear us both talk about it, let me know, because I'll do it again as long as she'd be willing to. What do you think, Alyson, after your first time talking about movies and stuff?
We'll see.
We'll see. She's a little bit out of her element. She's not used to this being in front of a camera thing, but I figured if it's just talking to me and talking about something that we just went and did, it would be easier of a transition.
I'm a hermit cat lady. I don't...
She is a hermit cat lady. She's not the most boisterous, outgoing, outspoken human on Earth. She's just kind of chill and relaxed. And
I'm not Bad Ape.
You're not Bad Ape. You're, who's the most chill of the apes we can compare you to?
Maurice.
Maurice? Yeah, I guess. You're a little less of a sweetheart than he is, but, you know.
I know.
Yeah. But that's all we've got. So please like, comment, subscribe. Go see the damn Apes movie. I think it's really good. That's all I've got. So I'll talk to you guys again soon. I'll link a couple videos here. You can click on my face up over here somewhere. Over her face, I'll put it. And subscribe to this channel. And I hope to hear from you guys soon. Talk to you later.